Hello, we're Bunch Design. My name is Sundius and Hisako, and this is Issei, as you met. We have been paired up with the Tree People, and we're very excited and happy to present some ideas and hopefully solutions. First, a little bit about ourselves. This is a project called Dimple Pimple. Hisako can describe it.
The project really was about naming the holes that you find in the city. And the idea was that I wanted to acknowledge part of the city, but currently not acknowledged because there's no name for it. Can you hear me? Okay. So the Dimple Pimple was a way to give identity to these random holes in the city. And then we packaged it with a seed and soil and water, so everyone can own the part of the city. So it comes with a map, and everyone can own part of the city, and that's how we try to connect people with the city in a kind of really strange way. I just realized that this is good, so it's really good for this event, but this is called a greeting wall, and we try to find spaces in the city that's not used or not even recognized that's not used. And we use the sun, this is just a shadow, so in the afternoon this sign comes, the sign is on this building, you can't see it from the street at all, and this text just shows up every afternoon. So this is another way we thought of connecting people in the city. Very strange project, again. This was a small proposal we did for a library. And the idea was that instead of thinking library as a place for books, it's a place for reading. It's a place where people go to exchange ideas. And we thought, where do we really like to read? And it was like park, under the tree, under the shade. So the idea was that the library component is very small. It contains books that has to be covered with roof, but everything else is like an aviary. It's a giant structure, more than what you need for a library, but you walk in and you read under the tree, and you can, probably with today's technology, can walk around the library freely and read digital books or what have you.
So we thought it was important to describe a little bit of our work because we have an interest in kind of reimagining the public space and how we engage with it. And so we were particularly delighted to get this challenge. And so the challenge was Los Angeles is a diverse population with 80 languages and over 200 nations, 200 nations represented. How do we move this population that may be interested in urban greening, but are not all that environmentally literate, to understand and be inspired to take effective action? And so we realized that there are so many different types of people here, and there's so many different types of trees. But our relationships with trees are not necessarily apparent. Los Angeles has gone through a great transformation since it was first populated by the Native Americans and the Spaniards. So in the beginning, we had this nice arroyo landscape populated with trees and hills. But based on kind of typical human development, the first reaction to how we traditionally do urban planning is that we plan our cities and we chop the trees down. And then we build roads, right? The first kind of move towards an urban infrastructure. And we build more roads. And then we start parceling land. Parcelization based upon property lines, all fronted on streetscapes, generally made rectangular for kind of ease and organization. And new homes. And this is, where our new community occurs. And, it's important to populate and to house people. But the unfortunate thing is that then the trees, our interaction with trees is almost an afterthought, and they're relegated to the front property lines and to along the streets. So we thought, well, most the programs like Million Trees, Trees for LA have done a wonderful job of expanding literacy about trees. We've participated in it. I'm sure a lot of folks here have as well. But we were thinking, well, how do we expand this into a completely new population, a new group of people? And so let's reimagine development completely and see if we can't charge a new kind of maybe childlike or kind of infancy that we had with trees, something going back to the beginning. So we rethought LA from its beginning. And we thought, well, what happens instead of building houses, kind of our primary residential and kind of most familiar building type, with streets and roads and parcels, but rather married them with trees? And start expanding based upon housing and trees, so that we start to create a new urban environment that takes the notion that we've solved certain ideas of vehicular transit through mass transit and a lot of the ways of densifying that we're moving towards, and starts to rethink of houses and trees, different housing components based upon a very specific relationship with trees, so that you imagine a house that, let's say, is a jacket for a tree. We started this process by going to the Huntington Garden and just kind of observing how people are moving. And it's amazing when you go there to see children playing in the canopies of trees, people climbing, how different groups of people start to cluster themselves into different pockets, populated by different types of trees. Maybe it's a big meadow, maybe it's a small meadow, maybe it's just a small space underneath a willow tree. And so we were starting to imagine what happens if instead of just being underneath the tree canopy, rather you reimagined the ground plane 20 feet up. What then would your experience of a tree be? Something more kind of elaborate than a tree house, but start to get people to think about trees in a completely new way. Yeah. New houses for trees that are more like bushes. Houses for super tall trees. And we went and started to look at different types of trees and how these different types of trees and their specific, let's say, seasonal blossoms, or their shape, whether they're tall or conical or very large, how that might start to shape a new type of architecture and a new type of engaging with those trees. To create a new community reimagined between peoples and trees. Thank you.